Mark, thanks for joining us, my mate.
Thanks for having me.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Some would say.
It seems like you've been AWOL from social media, life in general. Well, what's going on with you anyway? So
Definitely not been AWOL on Facebook.
Yeah.
A little bit on Instagram. Definitely AWOL from YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to start without giving any spoilers that I want to apologize in advance.
Right, okay.
Because it might come across like I'm a sandwich of a picnic at times.
I'm not going to lie.
Because
that's about right.
That's because on the treatment, right, that I was receiving, I have these moments where I can hear a word, I can see a word, I can't say the word.
Right, okay.
And it's not that I don't know what it is. It's like do you know that thing in the sky?
Yeah.
You know that thing that's kind of warm?
The big ball of gas in the sky
Yeah.
that we in the Northwest don't see on a regular basis, yeah.
I think sun, that's the one. But I can hear it, I can see it, I don't know what it's called. I just can't get the word out. It's really annoying, but hopefully it'll be okay.
Is that like down to like the treatment you've been having, etc.?
Yeah, it's like it's messed up with the cognitive side of things a little bit.
So
and it's the obvious things that I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll say something or remember something. I'm like, how did I remember that?
Yeah.
Or how did I know what that meant? But it's the simple, real simple stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't say it.
So what exactly? Why then have you been away then for so long? What's happened? You've been happening in the background.
So
for those that don't know.
For those that don't know, I was re-diagnosed with skin cancer last February.
Yeah.
So what's that? 2024.
Yeah.
And I was literally only given the all clear the spring before in 2023 from the first time round.
That's good news at least, anyway.
But it came back super quick, and it came back a lot more vicious than the first time. And I think a lot of people's immediate thought might think, well, you work outside, it's obvious you got burnt or whatever, but it's actually not the case.
Yeah.
There's two forms of skin cancer. There's the outside in.
Yeah.
Like sun exposure, things like that. And there's also the inside out, where it develops from the inside and comes out. And mine was the latter. So basically, it just got to the point where I worked as much as I could. I was given the full diagnosis of stage 4 metastasized melanoma, which basically means that's gone to your lymph system.
I mean, most people in stage 4, there's almost that, oh shit, like.
There's no stages after that.
No, well, none that don't involve a headstone, generally speaking.
Exactly.
Because it's serious. And,
Yeah.
I've had family members suffer from cancer, and they're very much a case of not necessarily skin cancer. It's more like bone cancer and pancreatic cancer and stuff like that. And when you hear stage 4, there's almost that inevitable resignation that there's nothing you can do and blah blah. But it's not always the case, and it's good to hear, say, even though you went to stage 4 with your cancer, that obviously you're still here, you're still alive, still kicking, still gobby, etc. Which is great.
Well, I knew I was in trouble because obviously the time before was stage 3, so I was fully aware of what stage 3 looked like, and this was like way worse, and it was way more dramatic, and I was like, yeah, I'm in trouble. But in typical me, I was like, okay. Speaking to the oncologist, like, this is your treatment plan.
Yeah.
So originally it was meant to be a 2-year treatment plan in total, with an initial, like we do first cleans and then the maintenance clean. It's a similar thing. There was this initial treatment period and then going on to a maintenance period for up to 2 years. So it's going to be every 3 weeks I'd have treatment. So in my head, I went, great. I'd have treatment on that day, have a week off, go back to work for 2 weeks, have my treatment, have a week off, and I thought, easy. That was my mentality towards it, despite the fact it was stage 4. So I had my treatment on the Friday, round 1. I started having side effects before I even got home on the train.
So, like, what kind of side effects were you experiencing and stuff like that?
My first one, my obvious one, was I had, what's that thing? Sty that grows in your eye?
Oh, yeah.
Never had one before in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm literally on the train. I'm like, kind of feel something there. By the time I've got home and looked in the mirror, and we're talking door to door, probably less than an hour, to be fair. I looked in the mirror and there's a freaking sty there. I'm like, this is a good start. We've seen changes instantly. But then I was like, okay, Monday back to work, and it was quite difficult. But I thought, well, it's obvious. It's not gonna be a walk in the park.
No.
Then I went back to work on Tuesday, and then the realization hit me, like, one of us has got to die. Like, the business has to die or I die. We're not both gonna make this.
They cannot coexist at this point.
No.
Yeah.
So it was obviously a no-brainer of a decision.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we're done.
So obviously at this point now you're like you're like a limited company.
Yep.
You're sort of trotting around. You're still working on your own. I'll take it. Or you had a guy with you at some point. So you're on your own. You're trotting about doing your thing, and then obviously at some point this realization comes. You're like, one of us has to go here, mate. You know what I mean? And it's like, how hard for you was it to sort of say, no, I'm calling time on the business, sort of thing? Potentially could have been forever at that point, because you don't know that. With the power of hindsight,
no, of course,
we can always look back and sort of say, yeah, well, 2020 vision, 100%. Oh, I always knew I was going to come back, and it's like, yeah, it don't always work like that.
No, to be honest with you, there is this longer term vision you can have of yourself. People say, look 5-10 years down in your life, see where you want to be, come back to where you are now, and in some respect work towards that. I never saw myself, for the most part, apart from when days got really dark, but for the most part, I didn't see myself not being here.
Yeah.
In some form. And maybe I wouldn't have been as productive as I was, or as successful as I was, but I would have still been around in one form or another. I even envisioned myself just with a bucket and a trad pole jumping on the train and doing shops along the central line.
Yeah.
I wasn't by any stretch thinking, that's over, I'm done, I'm never coming back, or never coming back into business.
Is your like morale from like the very beginning fairly stable, or were there points where you're just like, fuck this, I'm
At the beginning, like I said, I thought I was gonna stroll through this stupidly, because I did. This is the
typical
thing,
bloke.
Yeah, well, from the experience of the first time round, it was almost like I didn't have time for cancer. It was like, I've got things to do. You're just going to go in my back pocket. Like, I've got shit to do.
Do you later?
And then
put it in a box.
Because normally it's like, well, you've got cancer, you've got treatment, and then you get what's left of you.
A result or something, yeah.
And then you work with what's left. But my attitude was, no, this is what I've got to do. What I've got left, that's to deal with cancer. So that cancer can't be any bigger than what I've got left. Yeah. And for the most part, it was, for the most part, maybe 85, 90% a walk in the park. Right. If I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
This is where I wonder somewhat if I pulled it back myself. It depends on how you look at things. But I honestly, I felt it was quite a simple thing to deal with. I know there's a lot of extra unknowns and pressures, and work was a lot more difficult. Don't get me wrong.
Physically to do it.
Yeah. But I still fucking did it. Like, we sat down with my ex-wife and my son at, I think it's Christmas or New Year's Eve, and there's like a reflection of that particular year. And I was like, well, it's been tough, but we've got there. And my son's attitude was like, didn't notice a difference. It's like, fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, good.
It's all that is like, obviously, as being a father, I'm a father as well. And you always want to sort of, there's always going to be difficulties, and there's always going to be problems for you to overcome. But as a dad, you always want to make sure that your children don't see that struggle as much.
Yeah, but I actually think it was a negative.
Yeah.
Because he didn't feel how hard it was.
Just took it for granted, sort of thing.
Took it for granted, and that was just like, oh yeah, my dad had cancer. Like, oh yeah, my dad broke his arm once.
It's probably testament to how you've reacted, and it's like, oh well,
yeah, but he missed the lesson.
Yeah,
he missed the valuable lesson of, oh, it doesn't matter what's going on, you get on.
Yeah,
that's what he missed, because he wasn't directly affected to it. So I took the full brunt of it to protect him in a sense.
Yeah.
But he then missed what was going on up here. We've had many conversations since then, and he's got more of a, and obviously second time round as well.
Yeah, got more of an awareness now.
Much more of awareness, but at the time, completely, in one respect, ignorant to it, but in another respect, negatively ignorant to it as well.
Yeah. So obviously you've got your health, you've got your family life coinciding, but then you throw into that the business. I mean, just how big an impact was that on you, on your day to day? Bear in mind, you're on your own.
You're talking about the first time or second time?
Well, like I say,
to be honest with you, they
put
are
a bit more meat on the bones about obviously from where the differences from the first time round to like the second time round, because obviously we've spoken offline about it and how
just for a few hours.
Well, just for a few hours, you know, in the pub. From about 7 hours offline. You're welcome. So,
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, joking aside though, is like for those that don't know, what kind of impact for the first time did it have on you versus the second time, and was it different? Because the thing is, people will say about cancer, and it's one thing if you're an employee because you know you've got rights, you've got a bit of top cover, you've got a bit of a bit of a cushioning, if you like, from the government in the form of statutory sick pay, all this sort of stuff. You do get some tax credits and stuff like that. I mean, financially, how big a burden was it to sort of juggle all three things: your health, your family, and your business?
Well, to be honest, like first time round was one type of life that I was living, and in that void between first time and second time round, I made a lot of changes in my own personal life. I left my wife not long after I was given the all clear. Because I kind of like had the attitude of I've been given a second chance, and do I want to keep on doing what I've been doing? And unfortunately for those involved, my answer was actually no, I don't. So it's literally so many sort of comparisons within the situation are night and day. First time round, like I said, we didn't notice a damn difference. Like I didn't stop it because I developed this attitude during COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So as soon as COVID hit and we all went into that panic,
that weird period.
Yeah. But early doors when no one had a clue how bad this was going to get. I was like, great, let's stop everything. Let's just batten down the hatches. And after, I swear to God, half hour, I was like, can I swear?
Well, I've got a few boots.
I was like, this is shit. Like, if I'm gonna go because of COVID, if we're all gonna go, why am I going living this crap?
Carrying in a corner.
So I was like, bollocks, I'm gonna keep all my prescriptions going, find a few more.
Yeah.
And even if I had like my son was going to a kickboxing club, I was like, yeah, just keep the payment going, like keep the lights on. And it actually kept me going. Because
that sense of continuity and all that.
Yeah, I had a responsibility.
Yeah.
So when the cancer came around the first time, I deployed the same attitude. Like, we're not stopping any subscriptions. We're not cutting back on anything.
Not planning for the worst.
Absolutely not.
You're just going to go, I'll beat it, sort of thing. You know?
And I had the attitude the whole time. Every time it got a little bit challenging, I was like, I can just see myself bang hitting the bell. I could just see it. I never got to hit the bell.
No.
But it's that you're all clear situation.
Yeah.
But the second time round, like I said, completely different life, completely different setup. And I didn't really have much choice. Like I said, it was like, if I keep the business, I'm not going to be here to run it. So either way, the business dies eventually.
Yeah. It's not so much dies, but I mean, as again, with the power of hindsight, we can look at it and sort of say it's more of a speed bump than a fucking dead end. It's more of a speed bump because obviously you've continued to build on it. You like you say, you're reclaiming what was effectively yours.
But I didn't know how it was going to be.
But at the time, you didn't know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lesson there in almost like, well, even if you have to temporarily stop your business, doesn't mean you can't restart it. It's by no means necessarily a dead stop. It's more of a right. Okay, this is an obstacle. This is a speed bump. it's going to slow us down. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but we'll get over it. We'll get through it, and we'll just carry on.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't that attitude.
But that attitude at the time, you're almost like, oh, Christ, you know, it's like, right, done, sort of.
It was literally the case of like my tattoo there, Stowe's window cleaning. As its thing, its own entity, was like shut the doors, and that was it. End of. I let everyone know the situation with the proposed treatment plan of how long it's roughly going to be, and I ended up being off work for best part of a year, and I thought I'd be back to work within 3 months, naively. So that was a closed case sort of thing, and I genuinely didn't think the amount of people that have held on for me would have held on. I expected that I would have.
You mean your customers, as in your window cleaning customers and stuff like that?
I think it's unfair to call them customers. They're clients more than customers.
Fair enough.
I don't even think that's enough. They're advocates of me, maybe. They're part of my community.
They back you.
Yeah, and there was a couple of occasions, once or twice, when things got really, really, really bad, and I started thinking about, okay, well, my family that I'm living with, I have now, don't financially rely on me. They're okay. My son's grown up. He's going to be off doing his own thing. Like, just, I was looking at all these sections. I'm like, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. And then it got to like the last section, which was my community, which is like people online, or even physically my community and my clients and things like that. And I'm like, they're expecting me to get up. They're expecting me to send that message to say, hey, I'm back. So I guess I'm getting up.
Oh, good. Like I say, it's funny with that. I've said many a time online, and I suppose it's a bit different in a lot of respects. Customers, I always say customers aren't your friends. And stuff like that. There is a customers aren't your friends. It's a transactional thing, and I think in a lot of cases, 100% it is. If you've not built that rapport and stuff, it is. But there are always that hardcore of customer that are a little bit. It's like the guys and girls that were with you when you were that little ladder and bucket, and just that guy sort of going around doing bits and stuff like that. Your little hardcore of followers that go, yes mate, happy days, people that are really chuffy. And then there's obviously the transactional side and stuff like that. So to be fair, I probably, hearing you talk about this a bit more, sort of, I probably have a bit more of an appreciation for those that have been with us from day one. Not that I ever took them for granted, but it's almost like it's another perspective, if you like. And obviously I've never gone through what you've gone through.
Hope you never
I hope I never do, touch wood. But then we had a conversation, didn't we, about the other night about, it's like 1 in 2 people.
It's 1 in 2, yeah, unfortunately.
That's incredible. It's like 50% of the population at some point will be touched by this.
Yeah. But and on the flip side, the survival rate is higher.
100%. That doesn't make it any easier going through it. No. And then when you hear some of the stuff, and obviously we all know someone that's very unfortunately passed, or we know someone whose family member has passed as a result of it, sort of thing, and it doesn't make it any less scary. It doesn't take away from the struggle. No. But it certainly gives you a bit of perspective. 100%. We've got more hope, but at the same time, I think more needs to be done to sort of, raise awareness of it and ultimately try and kick its ass, basically. But yeah, no, it's incredible hearing, that side of it. Do you think the struggle has kind of made you, more resilient ongoing as a person mentally? Are you more, or is there an area?
I think I always have been. I have, some people have bucket lists of things they want to achieve in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was twisted.
How's that?
Well, some people want to see like, Taj Mahal and all these kind of things. Mine was being homeless, dealing with recession, dealing with either war or pandemic. That was actually on my list. Sorry, guys, I caused it.
You dreamt it.
Yeah. Did I say being homeless?
Yes.
Right. Tick that one off. And cancer.
And so
I didn't have just like an illness. I literally had cancer.
That's all right. So put more. So what? Explain that then. Why was that almost a thing in your head then?
Because I've just found over my life, like upbringing, rather.
Roger.
It's
not word things.
The first one.
It's that them words again. You
Exactly. Maybe not necessarily that whole list, but you'd have scenarios where people like they would excuse why they haven't done something because they come from a broken home, because they've got no qualifications, because they was homeless, because of X, Y, Z. And I was like,
something out of their control, perceived at least.
Yeah, I was like, okay, then I want that to be my list, and I want to make sure that every time I go into that situation, that I come out slightly better. That was a twisted ambition of mine.
Certainly not so much an ambition, I would have thought, but it's more like a stoic viewpoint where it's almost like if you can overcome that, you can overcome anything, sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's always like COVID and all these kind of things, all these things through history, and obviously you're big on history too. There is always winners and losers out of any situation.
Yeah,
right.
Any difficulty always produces its winners and those that get left behind.
Probably 99% of the time, the winners by choice and the losers by choice.
Not always.
I'd say a lot of the time it's like there's a situation here, I can't do anything, I'm a victim to the situation, right?
Just accept it.
Or you go, okay, this is a bit of a struggle. What's my move? What can I do? What can I do to improve the situation?
I've been saying this for a number of years, and again, when I started my channel, and we talk a bit about mindset, talk about growth, talk about how it doesn't really matter where you start is not necessarily a choice, but where you end up.
For sure.
You have a large amount of choice in where you end up. And it's not about settling for, you're looking at the situation you're in a shit sandwich and everyone's got to take a bite. You ultimately have a choice as to where you end up, or a good portion of the direction you can travel is down to you. It's not always down to just if you sit back and just sort of accept what's coming. And, there's an element of being stoic, but stoic is accepting that the situation is tough and it is what it is. You've just got to get through it. There's an element of stoicism, but stoicism in my eyes is like, it's almost an acceptance. Things are just the way they are.
Yep.
There has to be something beyond that, which is, all right, it's shit now. We're going to use this as ammunition to push me on. If I have, and if I have even a 2% say in the direction my life's going to go, then I'm still going to take it.
Yeah.
And I think, you've demonstrated that through like the cancer and the struggle, and like you say with your personal life.
And that was the last tick on the list. I've completed it
so
now.
You're done now. That's cool. Everything is uphill from here.
My single bucket list is done.
Yeah, no, fair. It's like it's all downhill from here now. You're laughing. It's fine now. But it's interesting when you hear about how people have struggled and then they come out on the back of it, and it's almost, there's a reflection to sort of go, it was awful, it was hell, but I'm a better person for it. I kind of don't take things for granted as much as what I used to, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's much the same way for me, certain large parts of my life and stuff like that as well. And I identify that 100% with, that coming out the other side of a struggle and being better for it. Do you think that, a large chunk of, if you like, this generation of people that are coming through, do you think that there is a degree of hopelessness, that people just accept things as the way they are? What stops people from, getting the most out of their potential?
I don't think it's not a generational thing.
No.
Absolutely not. It's something that's gone on indefinitely from mankind.
Yeah.
I think the issue with even my generation and since, they haven't really, if you think about it, haven't really had a struggle. No. Even COVID wasn't a struggle. Okay.
For some people, it would 100% would have been, but it's not in the grand scheme of things.
Was your water still running during COVID?
Yeah.
Could you turn your heating on?
100%.
Could you turn your TV on?
Yeah.
Could you get your phone out and video call your aunt and uncle?
100%.
Of course you fucking could.
But on the other side of that,
that's not a struggle. To you and me, that's not a struggle.
I don't know. Did I struggle? Yeah, I did. I'll be honest with you. The reason that I struggled was not because I didn't have to worry about where the water was coming from, didn't have to worry about the lights coming on, didn't have to worry about food being in the fridge. Yeah. My struggle was being inside of 4 walls for a good chunk of the day. I get cabin fever. I'm like, I need to get out.
Okay.
I need to get out. I'm not built for this.
So I did that literally for one day.
Yeah.
Like they had, the warning came out, I think it was like a Monday night.
Yeah.
Lockdown happened the next day.
Yeah.
And I was straight onto the government website.
It was 2 days. We got locked down 2 days before my youngest daughter's birthday.
Right.
Because we were due to go to Pizza Hut for her birthday,
Right, yeah,
and it never happened for a year. We never went out for an entire year, and that stands out in my mind. But from the perspective of literally not being the difficulty in my head was not having the choice. You know what? I want to go somewhere today. I want to do that. Not having that, not having the ability to see my loved ones, that affected me. And you can make a big play of it. And sort of say, oh well, it's not that hard to deal with, and yeah, cool, I respect that. For some people, it's not, but in the grand scheme of things, there are people who, some people would look at like third world country and say, well, look, there's no food and they're homeless and all this sort of stuff and blah blah. Yeah, that's real struggle. I would say complete lack of freedom. I'm quite a free spirited person.
Yeah.
I do things sometimes quite impulsively. You remove that choice, that freedom, that affected me. Where I couldn't see the ones, my loved ones, or I couldn't do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it.
Yeah, there was a few limitations.
There's a few impositions, stuff like wearing masks and all this sort of stuff. And it was just like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this game anymore.
But would you have taken that, or would you rather have been a prisoner in Auschwitz?
You said, yeah, but that's the point, though. You says it's not a case of either or. It's a case of no, I don't accept the situation for what it is. And the thing is, that's where the struggle came. But I don't know.
That's how I position things in my life. But a lot of the time, when I think this is a little bit difficult.
I mean, I look at it from the perspective I've mentioned, obviously in the past about my military service and stuff like that, and obviously the struggles and all that sort of stuff I've been through, and which by the way pale into comparison with guys that came before us in World War II and stuff. There's no comparison between my military service and theirs. Their sacrifice is way in excess of ours. The technology that we have now makes doing that role so much less risky, so much less intense to some extent. You know what I mean? And you're talking about guys in World War II that were under fire for months at a time, whereas we were we'd be really really heavily intense. Moments of action and then nothing, and then really intense moments of action and then nothing, and then wait for a while, hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
So that side of it, struggle-wise, mentally, yeah, I look at that and go, it didn't make it didn't make going through what we went through any less stressful than them, because it's all perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the whole idea behind good times create. So strong men create good times. Good times create weak people create hard times, and then I think we're on the other side of that cycle now. I think we're going to come through. I think people will manage just fine, and we'll come through it. Society will come through it. I'm not one of these doom mongers by a long shot.
No, and if it does, like you say, then more people will rise up and create that again.
It'll be people will be more resilient and stronger as a result of it.
But then the cycle will just repeat itself.
100%. So,
but what a lot of people don't realise and give a much thought to. Is even the breadline, the people on the breadline live in very, very, budget-focused lives, typically have a more comfortable life than our kings of not that long ago.
But it's perspective, isn't it?
Perspective is power. It's your passport or your prison.
There is that. I look at it and sort of say, well, yeah, I mean, take, for example, the whole self-employed journey and stuff like that. I mean, never at any point in history has it been easier to start a business. I mean,
for sure.
I mean, you can learn pretty much anything you want through YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're cleaning, typically, I used to watch Keith Kalfas and Luke the Window Cleaner on YouTube. And I remember thinking, right, well, I can blade a window and learn that properly and refine that technique and sort and sell that as a service, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's I think access to information in some respects has made people almost what's the word? They're almost complacent about it. So if you say my daughter, she wants to find something out now, she can just Google it on a handset, and any number of questions that she has can be answered in the tip of her fingers. Whereas people of perhaps my generation, where we lived before the internet and we lived afterwards, if you, to some extent, if you wanted information, go to the library, get a book. It's not it's at your fingertips. You've access to information, but you have to seek it out, and it's not just impulsive. I wonder if, I wonder what if, all this sort of stuff. You have to actively go out and seek that advice. Do I think I could have started a business in the 1950s? No, I don't think I could, because I don't think I don't think I would have had the time or the focus to go out and get the information required to go and deliver a service. I don't. Don't
you just think there would have been something at that time that you would have just seen picked up?
I don't know. I don't know for certain, but I look at it and sort of say, well, actually,
did you do anything like when you was a teenager, Saturday work, after school work, that might have been?
I was in the cadets.
Okay.
I was in the cadets. I didn't really have a paper round. My first job when I was 16 was working in a bakery. Mm-hmm. So I've always had this thing in my head. My parents encouraged me to work. You know, you must have a job. You know, because here's the thing: you leave school, and my dad said to me, "So that's cool. You're leaving school. Rent's due Friday," and it's like, "Oh shit. Okay, now I actually have to do something."
Yeah.
So again, you know, we were chatting before about being prompted, and I think there's perhaps a little ADHD, little gremlin in my head that sort of says, "Oh, I'll leave it till last minute. Leave it till last minute." I work really, really well under pressure. I always have. But I think what it is like, oh, don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden, that needs doing in like 10 minutes. You're like, oh shit, I better do something about that. So I think being prompted to action is a big part of how I live. Yeah. But I think if I look back at, like, say, my mum's generation, my granddad's generation, all that sort of stuff, the access to information wasn't there. It was there, but it wasn't as readily available. And I think that maybe...
and there's a lot of gatekeeping as well from our elders.
And this is it. And obviously, even now, we see... slightly off topic a little bit, we're like with social media and stuff like that, how people now in like the window cleaning community online, there's a lot of gatekeeping. There's a lot of, this is my train set, this is well, why would I tell you this and all this sort of stuff, why would I share my knowledge and all this sort of stuff. And there's like people asking for advice. You ever want to see examples of complete vitriol from human beings, right? Go on them Facebook pages, right?
I'm done with them.
But you go on those Facebook pages and you look at the people that ask for advice, and there will be people like me who will be prepared to offer advice. There will be people like you that no doubt will sort of say, oh, mate, well, you might want to consider this. You might want to look at that and blah, blah. Have you considered that? And all this sort of stuff. Me personally, I like this, but you might want to go with that. You'll suggest things and you'll try and be helpful. You'll try and be of value, which is, this is why I like, me and you, I think we get on so well. But then there are other lizards and reptiles and lesser mortals who will sort of turn around and go, can't believe you're asking something so bone and so simple, get a grip and all this sort of stuff. It's more a reflection of their insecurities, for sure, than it is about the guy asking the question. And that really, I'm not gonna lie, it makes my piss boil when I see that, because it's like, look, we were all at some point in need of answers. Right, we have all sought help at some point from various quarters to get to where we're going, and you were no different. Now, why are you choosing now to be a dick about it? Yeah, and you know what I mean. I look at it and I just go, dude, the guy's just asking a question. We're not born knowing. Yeah, you know what I mean.
And it makes you wonder why they're even on the pages.
They're there for entertainment. I think they're there to poke holes at other people, because that I think elevates their self-worth, which I think is pathetic. Yeah. I mean, a rising tide raises all ships, as I'm sure I've read somewhere. And it's true. If you help other people, then, that is,
Well, I think the industry itself over the last, how many years I've been in this? Maybe 15 years. Yeah. If not more. I've seen it get better and better and better. It's become more of a business. It's become more of a professional trade.
Do you think it's more respected now than it has been in the past?
Yeah, but I do believe that we've done it ourselves by being a bigger community. And then I see you and you've got your van.
Setting our stall out and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you see your logo and stuff and you think, that's a good idea. And then we're all rubbing off each other, improving our standards, improving our pricing, improving our communication with the clients. Yeah, all these things and like you say, we've all just risen with that tide.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's down to again, I go back to what I was saying before about knowledge. and access to information, and like I say, there are gatekeepers, and 100%. But I think a large reason as to why the industry is getting more professional, I think it's because people are looking at options, and sort of people's when they see back in the day, like in the 50s and 60s, no social media, and we were talking the other day about do you go to the trades entrance to get paid, and people go around the back and all this sort of stuff. There's an image thing there, and it's
absolutely.
And there's like, well, you're the help, you're the window cleaner, you're the help, and all this sort of stuff. And like now, I think when you've got people sort of standing up, and like people, like I looked at people I admired, like Keith Kalfas and Luke the window cleaner in America. Very different industry. Same industry, but very different way of doing things, because of that's their culture, that's how how they do things, and that's how it fits in with them. But then when you see someone stand up and sort of go, knowing your worth, and sort of going, well, actually, you don't need to accept being spoken to like that. No. And I think there's an acceptance that ultimately, just because you have a job that this person wouldn't want to do themselves, doesn't mean you're any less worthy as a person.
No, absolutely not.
And in some respects, in my humble opinion, you are more ballsy, you are more worthy in some respects than some of these people, purely on the basis you were prepared to take a chance. You give zero fucks as to what other people think about your choice of living, your choice of how you make money.
Choice of van.
Choice of van. If anyone's seen Mark's van, it's like it does. I mean, you don't mind me saying, it does look like a laser guided bomb's hit it. To be fair,
yeah, it does.
But it's one of those. It's recognizable if nothing else. But there's
don't have to like it. You just can't forget it.
100%. You don't have to like it a lump. At the end of the day, does it impact the way you carry out your job? No, it doesn't. Does it impact the value you offer the client? No, it doesn't. No. So ultimately, if you don't like it, mind your own business. You can't say anything positive. Shut up and don't say anything.
Yeah. But no, keep saying bad things. It's good for our algorithms. Keep coming.
Well, yeah. Also, I think as well, I have been guilty myself in the past where people have been negative to me. Bring it on, cupcake, see what happens. I use it as fuel sometimes. It's like I've always had that, even as a youngster, had that chip on my shoulder where it was like, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, blah blah. I mean, and there's that small part of me, even as a 10, 11-year-old child, was like, fucking watch me. You know what I mean? Oh, you can't do that. Fucking watch me. Just try me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've always had to try and sort of prove other people wrong. Now, obviously, I don't think like that now.
No.
And I've like to think I've grown as a person, but there's that element in there which sort of goes, well, I can do that. I can achieve what I want to achieve. And people have looked at the way when I started my business at the very beginning. Again, it was out of necessity, not want. Mm-hmm. I didn't particularly. It's not that I didn't want to be a window cleaner. I knew I wanted to be self-employed. I didn't want to work for someone. I didn't want to be beholden to someone else.
Yeah.
I didn't know what exactly that was. But I always knew that, there was another way. There was something better. And, I look at Jack's behind the camera right now, and obviously Jack will know, that, self-employed is the way to go, 100%. Being in charge of your own train set is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't matter if it was doing something to do with that, or if it was being an electrician, or if it was being a guy that fixes gutters, or it wouldn't be, or like putting tyres on vans. It wouldn't really matter what that was, as long as I didn't have to answer to someone as a boss.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can relate to that as well.
Oh, I found out really early doors. My dad always said to me, when you get a job, go to work, do your job, keep your mouth shut, and go home. That didn't last very long.
Yeah, climb the greasy pole.
And literally, as soon as I get to these places, for some reason, I don't know why, I just had the ability to see things differently that would enhance the situation. And I'd be like,
so how do you mean then?
So go back to when I worked in a car showroom.
Yeah.
Right. For whatever reason,
I can never imagine you working in a car showroom.
I was a tea boy.
Right. Okay.
Cleaning cars, sweeping the floor, making teas for clients that came in.
A golfer.
Yeah.
Go for this, go for that.
Yeah, exactly. And for some reason, I could just look at the showroom and go, it's off. Like, that should be over here and that should be there.
Yeah. This is the reason why.
I would bring it up in conversation, and it would just be like, "Go and sweep the floor."
You're just a T-boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then ironically,
stay in your lane.
But then ironically, like I wouldn't work weekends, and I come in the following week and go, "It's been changed around," and then the owner would go, "Doesn't it look good, Mark? So and so done it. Like the manager suggested we do it." I'm like, "Motherfucker." And that was repeated.
So, well, that's a good idea. I wonder where you got that from. And you're like, me.
Yeah, exactly. And that repeated like multiple times in the very few jobs I had.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you know what? If no one's going to freaking listen to these ideas that for some reason I know are going to work.
You're not going to be rewarded where you are.
No. I'm
so
going to go and do something else.
why continue that? You've got to go and do something else.
Yeah, and I was lucky in a sense that, you know, where I live, not where I'm from necessarily, where I live is quite an affluent area.
Yeah.
So,
which is where, by the way, just for the.
So we're talking Woodford, Chingford. So it's West Essex, East London, inside the M25, and yeah, it is. A lot of these people have high-paying jobs, so the thought of going self-employed or starting their own business is a huge risk. Right, they've got big mortgages, big numbers. But for me at the time, I was only young. I had a really poor paying job. It was basic wage. You know, it was apprentice money, effectively. So when I went on my own, it didn't really take me long to get back to where I was. No. So it wasn't a huge risk when I was like, yeah, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah, I think I've got my younger brother. He works in IT. He's in a very well paid job, and I wish him all the best. But the thing is his character. I see this in my brother. I love my brother to pieces, but I see this in his character. He, in my humble opinion, he would be better placed being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. But even if it went to him just being a consultant, being his own boss, he's very driven, very independent minded, has a very strong character. But for someone, I look at how, when I started my business and how Robert has gone on to do his thing, for him to change direction now, when he's got a mortgage and he's got kids and he's up the corporate ladder and he's up the top of that corporate ladder looking down, and it's almost like,
it's a long way down.
I think he had further to fall than I did. Because I mean, I was on my beam ends when I started, so really it was almost like, well, the only way is up, really. Yeah, exactly. For me, so but it's very different when I look at my brother, who I think, even though he is at the top of that corporate ladder, would be really, really well served and much happier running his own train set, being, his own boss.
There's a little, and I don't mean insulting in any way to your brother, because my dad told me this when I went out on my own. There's probably a little something missing in him that you and I both possess, and that's an element of courage. I don't think take that risk.
I don't think it's that insofar as my case, because as I've mentioned in the past, I started out in necessity. I started my business out in necessity. I needed money, and obviously
you've just made that sound like I need it. I'm just going to go and start my own thing and do it.
But again,
it's not it's actually for you and me. It's straightforward.
But if I was in Robert's position, would I have started my own business? Would I have started a window cleaning business if I was in this position? Probably not. Why? Because the path of least resistance.
But would you ever got to his position? I know I wouldn't have.
I'm not as intelligent as my brother, so the answer I can tell you for a fact is absolutely no. And I'm looking.
I didn't mean it like that.
No. What the thing is, this is the thing. Me and my brother are two very different characters. So I've been very much a doer with my hands. I'm a monkey see, monkey do kind of guy. In the army, they would teach you how to strip a Land Rover engine. And all this sort of stuff, and I'd be like, right, well, that goes in there. I can visualize.
Yeah.
I can visualize the process. The air travels down the snorkel, it goes down into the turbocharger, through this pipe, through the air filter, into the turbocharger. Follow the process and go, well, that goes there, and that goes there, and that goes there. Show me anything once, twice, 3 times, I've got it. My brother is up here. He's very intelligent. He's like, oh, hang on, I can visualize the system. I can understand the intricacies of this and codes and that does that and this does that. My brother can make a computer get up and do a tap dance, right? it's a very expensive doorstop to me. I've never even yes, I run a business and I've got a website and I've got this and I've got that and I've got the other. I could never build a website. Something simple is what people say. Oh, I'll build my own website. I'm like, that scares the hell out of me. I'm like, no, mate. My skill is doing the job, performing the task and being rewarded with monies for it.
Yeah.
That's where my skill set is. You want me to do a website? I'm like, nah, sling it, get someone in to do it. You want me to develop a logo? I'm not that creative. Get someone else to do it. You want me to develop, a system of doing things? Yeah, 100%, because I can understand the job inside out. My brother is different. He's very intellectual. He's all up here, whereas I'm very physical. We're just two different types of learners, right?
For sure.
But the thing is I would never have got to where my brother has got financially without starting a business, because my skill set is not something that is marketable as an employee.
No, exactly.
I don't have.
I couldn't get paid this amount by getting a job.
Hell no.
It's not because we get paid ridiculous amounts of money.
It's because the value of what you do.
Yeah.
It's because the value of what you do when you work for someone else has a ceiling. But when you perform that as your own boss and you can bring other people in and you can have employees, yes, 100%. The potential is higher, a lot higher for me in terms of my earnings, because I can ultimately, put another van on the road, put another guy in it.
Yep.
If I wanted to, I could probably grow it even further and even further. I've set myself a top limit of 4 vehicles, and then we'll evaluate whether we go from there. So I'm not one of these people who go, right, okay, well, I'll put a van on the road every year for the next 10 years. And people in this industry do exist, the likes of, I know, for example, Phil, who's been on the podcast with us a number of times. If he really, really wanted to, he could put a new van on the road every 6 weeks. And at one point had 5 vans and a unit and office staff and all this sort of stuff. And he scaled it right back because the stress was just overwhelming him.
There is that saying, though,
but I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that sort of says, right, I'm going to get to 4 vans, right? I'm going to make sure we're successful, make sure we're well-heeled, etc. And then I'm going to evaluate next steps. I'm not going to push it until it stops working.
Well, this is the thing. There's this saying that you either need 1 van or 1 location for your coffee shop or 10. That bit in between 2 and 9 is where it gets a little bit tricky.
I've had people turn around and say that.
Don't ask me. I've never had more than 1.
Which is fair enough.
That's just what I've heard.
You can still have an opinion on it, and ultimately you can learn lessons from other people. And this is what this podcast is all about. But I've had people friends of mine who've got 5 vans, right? And they say the hardest point in their business is when they had 3 vans. Now here's the thing: I've got 3 vans, but I don't see how it's particularly more difficult than 5, in my humble opinion.
I think it's about bringing in that middle management.
Yeah, possibly.
You need that extra bit of scale.
Because at the minute, I'm that guy, whereas the guy that I'm speaking of, who remain nameless, but the guy that I'm speaking of down in London, he has 5 vans. He, generally speaking, will attend the office, fix a few bits of broken bits, delegate the tasks out to the team, and then he'll go and play golf in the afternoon and network with other business owners and stuff like that. Fair play. That's if you playing golf, floats your boat. I mean, I couldn't hit. I mean, there's a running joke in my business, which is like, someone said, "Oh, do you want to go play golf, Chris?" And it was like, I said, "Well, put it this way: if Elon Musk wants to find water on the surface of Mars, all you got to do is send me with a golf club. I will find water in 5 minutes flat, mate. My ball, if there is water on Mars, my ball would be right in the middle of it." So I was saying before, what's the name when you've got like 5 vans, delegating the stuff out to teams. And again, he's mentioned to me that the most difficult part of his business is when he had 3 vans. I imagine as well because he was perhaps on the tools more than I am, which is by the by, and that's fine. But his perception was, you've got 3 vans, that's the most difficult part of your business, because when you've got 1 van with, say, 2 guys in it, they're off doing what they're doing, window cleaning all day, 2-man system, quite happy. You're trotting around in your van doing quotes and this, that and the other. There's balance. And then you get that third van where you've got perhaps 1 guy in each van covering more ground, doing more work, but now all of a sudden actually you need to take a bit of a shortfall with this. So 3 vans is a bit, right, well, you're a guy of many hats, you're wearing different hats, so you're doing the work during the day for maybe half the day, and then you go in doing quotes in the evening, then you fill in your paperwork and stuff like tax return and all this gubbins and all this sort of stuff, and then there's the balance is a bit. You're doing a lot of juggling
for sure.
And then he gets 4 vans, and it's a lot more easy because one of those guys is like a manager, and I think this is where we're going to be in the next sort of 3 or 4 months. We're looking at getting obviously I've mentioned one of my guys broke his leg.
Yep.
Adam, arguably one of...
It's inconvenient in this trade.
Oh, it's extremely inconvenient. By the way, it wasn't off a ladder, so before anyone starts jumping on my back saying, "Oh, this is what happens when you clean windows for a living." No, he was prattling around with his kids in the park, and he was just being a dad. And these things happen. Yeah. And so as a result of that now, I'm thinking to myself, right, well, actually, I need to... I can't take any credit for this. Again, I spoke about the network that I'm a part of with the WhatsApp groups and bits and pieces, and there's people far more intelligent and far more business gifted than me. And one of them, Phil from See It Clean, he's basically sort of suggested, well, why don't you take on another person, replace Adam for the short term, then grow your business so that when Adam comes back from his medical leave, whenever that is, he's just slots in. Yeah. And obviously I've spoken about making Adam the manager. He's currently the de facto manager as things stand anyway, because if something breaks, I lean on him quite a bit. He does a lot of debt chasing and all this sort of stuff. So it makes sense.
This is what they were saying between the 1 van and the 10 vans. And I'm sure there's people on there that have got 6 vans and they're doing absolutely great. You've got 3 vans, you're doing great. The point is when you get to like the 10 van volume is you've got all this middle management structure in place that actually the business runs day in, day out, grows day in, day out without you doing anything. Or
not so much without you doing anything, but without you physically doing the job of cleaning windows.
Not even in the office taking calls, doing quotes. That's all systemized by the people that are working with you. You have to get to that level.
When you get to that level, I imagine pretty much, and again, I'm not there yet, but I imagine that work starts becoming a choice as to what you choose to do within that operation rather than necessity. Whereas like right now, there are jobs that
I don't know. I think there'll always be a necessity because as you get bigger, you need to consume more work.
100%.
To keep that machine going.
Do more quotes and be more labour intensive. So you're not making it any easier for me. Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. I'm more demoralised.
Was it say you don't get easy? It doesn't get easier, you get better.
Oh, 100%. So I have actually said that as well. So there you go. So yeah, 100%. So where then in that scale do you find yourself then? Are you looking at sort of potentially what are your options going forward, your plans?
Before I go into that, I want to just quickly scale back to, do you know when you said you started through necessity?
Yes.
Did you have a child on the way?
I had. So Sophia was very young. I think she was under 4. And sorry, she was 2 when we moved up here into my mother-in-law's house. And Amy was a bump. So I did. I had children, but I had responsibilities. I had necessity. But the point is would I have taken that risk if I was on £70,000 a year, or would it be more convenient for me to seek another job that could match my salary? The reality is,
it was just a crossroad though, because I was in exactly the same situation. Like I was to some degree plodding along okay. I didn't have high expectations of myself. I didn't actually foresee me. I had dreams as like a teenager. Yeah. They got crushed by all the people around me. So by the time I was like a young adult, I was fucking depressed and had no hopes for me. So it was like anything was an achievement. Yeah. So I didn't have these grand ideas, but
I don't think people generally do anymore, to be honest with you, if I'm being honest. And those that do have ideas of grandeur and great plans, it's like you say, man makes plans, God laughs, what have you.
Exactly.
It's like, but the thing is that, unless of course you have that support structure in place, you have the family that's geared that way. And I hope that I've given my children something to aspire to in terms of like, well, my dad, even if it's not cleaning windows, because I won't wish, if you don't want to clean windows, I won't wish it on your worst enemy. But if you end of the day, if you want to, I've given my children an insight as to, well, my dad ran a business, so why can't I?
Yeah.
And again, because I'm the first person within my family to start a business. Really, it was like I said, it was out of necessity. But I thought, well, actually, it's what I want overall. I'd rather work for myself than work for someone else.
Yeah, but what I think
I did have, to be fair, a cushion, because at that point I was living in my mother-in-law's house,
Yeah.
and yes, I was paying rent. I was not paying anything
not a
like
mortgage or anything else,
100%.
no.
It's not like my brother who's got
Yeah.
like maybe a £600-700 mortgage, what have you. It's not like that. So,
No, but that crossroad, what a lot of people would do, and this is what my dad brought to my attention, because I just did it without thinking, like, oh, my son's born tomorrow, I'm working for myself. That's it. That was my decision. And my dad was like, that was really courageous of you, because the first thing I did as soon as I become a parent, he was a parent of 3, I need a job. He went and got a safe job.
played it safe.
Yeah. So I think there's a little element that you and I take for granted that other people just
maybe
don't have. They just don't have.
I don't know, but at the same time, perspective. Yeah, where we are on the file course right now, there are very few full-time secure jobs. Very few.
Sure.
And when you live in your mother-in-law's house and you haven't got a car, and you are limited geographically as to where you can work, your options are fairly limited.
Yeah, I think our lack of probably skills.
But exactly that as well. And,
Yeah.
and so, and again, I'm not putting it down to the circumstance. I'm not putting it down to what's around me and I'm how I react to it. It's more of a case of me sort of saying, well, actually, I don't currently have a car, so I'm pretty limited to the area I can work in. What is there available? And up the road from here was an old Argos. I worked in there. At one point, I had like 4 part-time jobs on the go rather than 1 full-time job, and it was, if anything, it was exhausting because one shift would clash with the other, and I had to manage it and all this sort of stuff. I was working behind us down there is the Jolly Tars. I used to work there with a pub with Witherspoons. Got sacked from that, and then I was also working with the Army Reserve. Sort of again, it's a sales thing, and people say, "Oh, you're really good at sales, Chris," and it's like, well, I can sell what I'm passionate about, and I love the Army Reserve. Everything that it's given me in terms of self-esteem, discipline, all this sort of stuff, I loved it. And the best thing about it was you're surrounded by like-minded people who actually gave a fuck and actually wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And that was energizing for me, so I loved it. So if I could sell that to someone who, like in my younger days, was looking for that, I'm all for it. In much the same way, I sell window cleaning jobs to customers. Now, am I particularly passionate about window cleaning? No, but I am passionate about my business growing. And so I can see that with every single job that goes by, whether it's, a small shop front or a house, or what, I can see growth, I can see development, I can see, that's more revenue coming in every month, happy days and blah, blah. And, and we're meeting good people and we're servicing, the local community and all this sort of stuff, 100%. But am I passionate about window cleaning? No, but I'm passionate about developing my business.
Yeah.
Was I passionate about selling stuff, a product?
Yeah.
And I thought I was good at sales, and I realized actually I'm only really good at sales when I can see an outcome that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
So when I was in the Army Reserve, it's like bringing a young lad or girl into the service to sort of say, look, this is what we expect of you. This is what we can offer you. You know what I mean? You get your driver's license, you'll get skills. You can go travel. The first time I did rock climbing was on the first time I was on the end of a rope was with the Army. First time I did canoeing was with the Army. Played football, played sports, and all this sort of stuff. I loved it.
Yeah.
You worked hard, but if you worked hard, you got rewarded.
Yeah. That's what you
and
do now.
The thing is, am I passionate about that? No, but I'm passionate about the result.
Yeah.
And the result for at the minute is the business growing.
And ironically, that brings us right back the way around to where we was, because you said, like, where am I on that?
Yeah, 100%.
1 to 10 vans. So you're passionate about business growth and seeing something develop and get bigger, right? My passion and probably my highest value is autonomy. So it's not about how big I can create something.
It's how free you are.
Yeah. And how much of me is in it. So it's like, well, my van is done a particular way because that's what I want. That's what I want to be driving, not because that's what looks good when I'm outside someone's house.
So talk about that van, because obviously a lot of people would be like, that perhaps don't know who you are, or
I'll have to send you a picture. You can lay it over the top of
this. Yeah,
100%.
It's like your van. But let's be honest. I mean, I'm going to be generous and say it does look a little beaten up. Let's be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I suppose that reflects your character a little bit.
It's got the scars. It's still standing.
It's no frills, beaten up. But I'm still fucking here. You know what I mean? All those sort of stuff. I kind of like that, to be fair. And you said obviously it's not necessarily sexy, but it's recognizable. And You know, I'm not saying you're not sexy, but you know,
I was going to say,
there's no take exception. But you know, but it goes to back to saying it's recognizable in the area that you're in. And
but
I think,
that is what I'm passionate about. I'm not passionate about how much business that van will attract.
Yeah.
I'm passionate that I get to drive around exactly in the vehicle that I want it to look like. I get to dress exactly how I like. I get to have a timetable exactly what I want.
I have a friend of mine called George, and he does what we do for it's like exterior cleaning, roof cleaning, and all this sort of stuff. And he was telling me about when he went to this networking event. We'll get onto sort of business networking and stuff like that. But this struck me as a character thing, and it was really funny. So he's you know, this network. You've done business networking. We sort of stand up. My name is Chris. I do this. You know, we do this X, Y, and Z. Give your 1 minute presentation about your business and what you have to offer and all this sort of stuff. And so he was at a business networking thing, and a guy stands up and says, well, I'm Oxford educated, X, Y, and Z, and I've done this, and we perform multi-million pounds worth of this and all that sort of stuff, and customer acquisitions and blah, blah, insert jargon here sort of thing. You know what I mean? And then there was another guy who sort of jumped on the bandwagon and said, well, I'm Cambridge educated, and I did X, Y, and Z, and blah, blah, and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, we're doing £4 million worth this quarter, and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And then George, who's like northern, he's from like sort of... Darwin, Blackburn, that kind of thing. You know, went to Stonyhurst and all this sort of stuff. He's a great guy, and he sort of stood up and says, "Well, you know, I was the first guy in my class to reach the rubber brick from the bottom of the pool." So just to sort of and the people.
That's an icebreaker.
It's an icebreaker, but the thing is, just goes to point is all image, it's all pretentious, it's all nonsense. Right. And so the thing is, when you strip that back, there's a person there, and his character was just. I would have given any amount of money just to be able to sit in the room and just laugh to myself in the corner, so that while he sort of brings these people down a level. And I think as like small business owners, northerners in particular, there are no frills. It's not sexy. It is what it is, right? And you can sort of turn around and sort of say, well, we turn over £4 million a quarter, and it's like, mate, a clean wind's for a living. What you're going to do? You know, it's like, look, you know, it doesn't mean we have no value, but we just don't take ourselves so seriously. And
I think some of us do.
And I think, you know, going back to you saying with your van and stuff like that, and saying about how it's like, look, you know, we're the best one in the world. It's a van. It works. It's recognizable. Yeah, all right. You might think it looks like a bag of shit, but ultimately it's mine. It's mine. You know, it's my train set. You don't have to like it.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk about it, but fill your boots. You know what I mean? You know, to take
and
it.
And
the
irony of it is, right? I've had my van for a long time. I think like 9 years now, and it's been like it is now for probably. Time flies, isn't it? Maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So wow, it's been in the image that it is now. All the years previous, no one batted an eyelid at my van.
No.
They wouldn't even recognize it sometimes, despite the fact it being all signed up. The second that I made it into what it is now, it was a conversation piece every day.
Do you think a big part of that though is because more people are drawn to negativity more so than positivity? They see a liveried van and they go, "Oh, right, it's what it is." They don't really have a conversation or a point to make about it. It's a liveried van and it looks decent, it's nice. But the second it doesn't meet their image of what a business owner is, they feel the need to sort of chirp in and sort of put their 2 pence on the table.
Most of the online trolls have got something to say on that level, but in terms of face-to-face people, most people are like, "What happened to your van?" Like, "I did." What do you mean?
Why did you do that?
So, who vandalised your van? I did.
Fair enough. But yeah, no. So where do you see? We were asking before. It's like, where do you see yourself in, you know, your business, if you like? What are the plans for that? Obviously, you've mentioned about obviously the back end of the cancer. You've kind of like, you know, reclaiming what was there.
Yeah, it's not a rebuild. I thought it was going to be, but it's just a lot of it's there, just covered in dust. Just need to bring it back on. A lot of people have waited a long time, so they're still being patient. That okay, I've waited 12 months. I can wait 13 or 14 months.
Yeah.
My schedule doesn't allow me to work at the level that I did before, and I'm okay with that. It is a choice to go, okay, these days I'm going to be available for this, and work is basically goes with what's left.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, no, I'm working 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
And then everything else falls by the wayside.
Yeah. It's a different sort of perspective, you know, change of how you do things and stuff like that. It's
just, and just different requirements in life, maybe more important things needs to be done other
100%.
than just going to work and just earning a bit more money.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, I'm gonna be. It's really interesting. Like, obviously, I came down yesterday and stayed last night.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep last night just because of the conversations that we had yesterday.
Yeah.
It really reminded me of stuff and made me realize some things that I hadn't even been aware of yet. And one of those things is, even though it's not a rebuild from scratch, I feel as fierce and as sharp as I did way back when, like 19 years ago.
Your desire is still there to...
It's a whole new desire. Because before it was like... So what happened was I grew the business to a point of I'm doing way better than I thought I could. But what I was doing, I was taking all day, every day to fulfill that amount. But then my level of growth, rather than getting bigger, it was actually... I was getting better. So I was getting the same amount in, but it was taking less and less and less and less time. So rather than just replenishing more work and getting more, I just stayed at the same level for a long time. And it just became a little bit way too casual. And it did, on a lot of levels, backfire to my detriment, because you become a bit fat, a bit lazy, so to speak, because you didn't need that sharpness. Have you heard the tale of the eagle, the bald eagle?
No, go on.
So the bald eagle can live to about, I believe it's the bald eagle, it might be the eagle in general, 70.
Right.
But when it gets to about 40 years old, its talons are gone blunt, its beak's gone blunt, its feathers have got heavy and old, and he's at a crossroad where he's not able to really hunt for himself. If you don't hunt, he's going to die, right? So he has to go off high up into the mountains, into the nest. I think it's in this order. He breaks his beak first. So a new beak grows through. Obviously now it's sharp again. Rips out his talons until they grow back, nice and sharp again. Then rips out his feathers until the new lighter ones grow back. And then he's got another 30 years to live by doing that dramatic change. And I feel like I've gone through, not by choice, a similar dramatic change that I've actually, because I've got a finite amount of time during my week. I'm even today sitting here.
Well, you mean like finite amount of time in life in general? Let's be honest.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
but just on a week by week, month by month basis, like I don't have 31 days to go to work.
No.
I might have, if I'm lucky, 9. You know, that's quite a lot of days I'm not working. So when I'm boots on the ground going to work, that's got to be as efficient as hell. So it's resharpening my eye for these things, and my logistics are getting tighter to get that work. Can I compress it down to as close as possible to get as close to as much done as I used to? But in a much short period of time.
My Steve Logan, the guy who mentored me for a good part when I was starting my business, or when I was looking to sort of, not so much starting my business, but when I'd started my business, but I was a bit like looking to get that second van and going, oh, should I not? You know, and all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, it's scary times. I'm not going to lie. I'll hold my hand up. It is scary for someone that grew up as I did, with a family that didn't have much, you know, very real parents, very grounded parents, very much like, you know, you get a job, climb the greasy pole, make yourself indispensable, you know, get promoted and da-da-da-da-da. You've always got to have a job and all this sort of stuff. Very grounded, very salt of the earth, northern parents. To then sort of going, oh, right, well, we'll just borrow some money and we'll just, you know, get another van. And it's like, no, don't do it. There's that little caveman in your head going,
Yeah.
no, don't, you're doing really well, because don't fuck it up. Don't do that now, this sort of stuff. And I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty about it. And I spoke to Steve Logan about it, and he sort of says to me, and he says, well, what do you want? And I said, well, what I want is ultimately to build a business where, it's profitable, that I'm not always tied to the tools. I have options. I can, I can bring other people in and all this sort of stuff. And he was like, great. He says, but the reward for that is on the other side of, your uncertainty. The reward for what you want is outside of your comfort zone. The only question is, are you prepared to put your big boy pants on and do it? Because here's the thing. If you're not, it's no disrespect. There's no drama. There's no judgment. It's like, but some people are built for that. And if you're prepared to go to that level, then truly your reward is on the other side of your comfort zone. And if you're prepared to sort of say, well, yeah, it's a bit of risk. And the irony is now, if I wanted to put another van on the road now, I probably could. And without so much as a moment's thought about it, I'd be like, right, what do the numbers say? Do we have enough numbers to justify another van? And the reason why we're not putting another van on the road at the minute is obviously bring this new guy in. We'll see what the scale, the idea of what he can generate and stuff like that. And then obviously if we grow, we go, well, actually the numbers say we'll get another van. Happy days. But at this point, it's like, well, we'll see where we are. There's no anxiety about it. There's no uncertainty about it, because I've done it. And again, so it's like you were saying before. It doesn't get easier, but you get better.
Yeah.
It's not that it gets easier, but your level of understanding is up a notch.
Yep.
So as soon as your level of understanding is up a notch, you're almost like, well, it's not that big a deal. Now, obviously, if you then turn around to me and said, oh, actually, Chris, you want to borrow £1 million? I'd be like, yeah, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
Because that does scare me.
But after you borrowed your first million,
but then again,
it's like, do you want to borrow 10 million?
But then again, I know millionaires who have properties and stuff like this, and they sort of say, well, the hardest step was going from 0 to 1 million. It took me 10 years to go from 0 to 1 million.
Yeah.
But then it took me 18 months to go from 1 million to 10 million.
Yeah.
And it's because they've scaled up their understanding. They've grown as a person and gone, well, actually, it's not that big. I've done it once. I reckon I could do it again and again and again and again. And it's all that growth and stuff like that. I look at, again, the whole reason why I started my actual YouTube channel. We spoke about it where there was a young lad, I helped him out and all this sort of stuff, and he was like, this information isn't generally out in the public domain in the UK. And I pointed out, well, there are guys in America doing X, Y, and Z, and they're the guys I followed.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, I didn't really know of any UK window cleaners talking about this sort of stuff, or people, or just generally, UK channels talking about growing small businesses. They're all about how do you take your business from this to that, and you're like, mate, I want to get on the ladder. I don't want to grow my business. I want to start one.
Yeah.
And it was very hard for me to I had no information to really go off other than what was in America, and I had to watch that and kind of adapt it.
Yeah.
And sort of go, well, actually, if that works there, would that work here?
Yeah.
And you'll get some cynics sort of turn around and say, oh, well, it's a different market, mate. It won't work. I said, well, it won't work 100%. But there are elements taking lessons from what already works and go, would that work here? Yes, no, why not? Yes, it will it not? And build on it. But now you see people, and I'm not saying that I started it by a long shot, but we're now starting to see, going back to what we were saying about before, access to information. Now people are going, actually, I can start a YouTube channel, I can start a podcast, I can do this, I have options.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And there's a lot more information out there. And ironically, we're getting to a point now where what information do you take from? Because there's an abundance of information. Now the question is it accurate information? Is it correct information? Is it right?
Yeah.
And all this sort of stuff. Is it from a credible source? So now we're going the other side now with too much information in some respects. So you're never going to win. But yeah, no, it's I look at people like yourself and other people that have YouTube channels and bits and pieces and stuff like that, and there's so much information. Even though yes, all right, you might not have staff. You've obviously had staff in the past, and people that helped you and stuff in the past. Doesn't mean I can't learn lessons from you. And it's being humble enough or being worldly enough to go, well, here's the thing. Yeah, you might not be able to teach me about growing vehicle fleets and all this sort of stuff, but on a personal level, we can talk all things like life in general. And there's so much that
for sure,
we have as business owners that we can exchange information on.
Yeah,
The idea of being a self-made man is
No,
ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
You know?
Even though I'm a solo operator, I have a community and clients all behind me that without all that lot, this self-made person wouldn't be self-made.
Well, you're not self-made. No one is truly
That's why it
self-made,
doesn't
because
exist.
we're the products of interactions that we have on a day-to-day, aren't we? So it's like, you know, we learn lessons and we can decide whether to act on that information or just put it in your back pocket and just, you know, and leave it, what have you.
Yeah. Do you have a because I'm sure there's some people out there that do want to scale, don't know how they would recruit. Like, how do you know if you found someone that's worth keeping on?
I think it just goes down to...
Or do you not know until you don't know?
I think there's characteristics. I think with people, and I've always said to people, you know, it's easy. You can teach a skill. So if someone lacks skills, you can always teach skills. You can't teach character.
Yeah.
So, like, looking at the military, for example, they recruit a certain type of person. You know, a person who is disciplined, who is driven. Generally speaking, you always get one reptile in there somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
But generally speaking, everyone wants to be there, or people that want to be there want a career, they want to do something with their life, right? So their attitude is on point, they're disciplined. And when they arrive at unit for the first time, they don't know their ass from their elbow. Everybody's like, I was like that, everybody's like that.
Yeah.
But then you interact with people that can teach you skills because you have the correct attitude, because you want to learn. You aspire to be like that person. You aspire to be like your sergeant major. You aspire to be like your sergeant.
Yeah.
You aspire to be like the corporal that's in charge of you. So your attitude is already on point. So we bring it back into like a small business. In my opinion, if you've got a good person, someone who at the root of them is a good person that can show empathy, that can speak to an old lady and also speak to a chief executive, very different ways of speaking to people, but they can navigate socially. They can sort of say, well, actually, you know, I don't talk to this chief executive in the same way I talk to Doreen down the street. Yeah. But they're cognizant of that. They go, you know, they can have a conversation with anybody. Social people. They might lack skills, but their attitude is on point. That for me, I mean, and I go back to what we said. We were talking at length last night about this, about how obviously I have a military background as an army reservist, and it's ironic that sort of the people that work for me currently and the new starter that's coming in Monday. So the new starter is ex-military. John, Big John, he's an ex military medic, so he was in the Royal Army Medical Corps. Paul is one of my contractors on he's like self-employed subcontractor. He's ex-infantry in the army. So it's interesting how like attracts like. So obviously, you know, when you speak to people and you kind of, you know, it's very hard to explain this to, you know, it's like attracts like. And if you attract people, you attract the positivity or negativity that comes back to you in truth. So if you're talking about how you speak to yourself, you was talking about depreciating sense of humor. It's very disarming, but sometimes you've got to be very careful how you talk to yourself. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you put positivity into the world, you tend to get positive things happen. If you put negativity into the world, a lot of negative things can happen to you. And so when you're self-employed, you'd be like, you know, even if you're like not really of that mindset, and you're always like, well, you're poor, and you know, you've no real prospects, and woe is me, why me, God? You know, why me, God? Why me? And all this sort of stuff. And it's like life's happening to you, not for you. Yeah. And if you soon start looking at the positives, even if it's like small positive wins, you're like, oh, no, it's fine. I can still feed myself. I'm good. I'm all right. I'm all right for now. And that's where the adversity kind of makes you stronger, I think. And I think that's why, like say with you with your cancer and stuff like that, you've come out as a stronger character at the back end of that, and it's kind of reprioritized for you what's important in your life. And I think you'll carry that forward into your life, and hopefully people watching this will be a bit more like, you know, see the positives.
It's managed to really dilute down my values in life. Yeah. That I've been looking for in someone. Like, where are these things? I can't find them. People talk about these things all the time. Your core values. I'm like, where are they? But now I'm here. I'm like, I know where they are now.
We're talking about, you know, how you attract people to you, and in much the same way,
If you want to know about yourself, take a look at the people around you. 100%. If you're looking around yourself and the people that work for you or work with you or whatever, if everyone's a prick, chances are you are too. Yeah. If actually around you, I've got good people, I've got 100%. People that have got my back and I can trust and things like that, you are too.
I mean, yeah, and I've spoken before at length on this pod and others about how growing up, I'm surrounded by other people who see business owners as a problem. They're not working people. People like us don't run businesses. So obviously we've spoken about how there's snobbery.
Yeah.
Where
we don't have a certificate from university.
Oh no, this is it. We've not done the course, mate.
No,
But it's one of those. It's like let's say for example, there's snobbery from let's say class and all this sort of stuff. I don't put too much stock into it. But let's say for argument's sake, you're talking about a guy. You saying the other night about trades entrance.
Yeah.
What was that? What sort of just.
Well, do you remember I said about that, and I also said about the person that walked past me in the street?
Yeah.
That knowing full well that I was going to their house and I needed to be paid, but they weren't there to pay me.
Yeah.
They were of the same family.
Yeah.
It was so I went to the daughter's first, nice house. It looked like it was a much bigger house in its previous years.
Yeah.
But it had just been cut into like 3 sections. But it was a vast place. Like if it stood alone, it's almost like a manor house. It was huge.
Yeah.
So I got this section and turned up, cleaned the windows. I can't remember how they got my number. I think that was back in the days, this is how far I'm going back, of leaving a leaflet in the newsagent's window. Remember those days?
Oh, yeah, God, yeah.
That's where you used to find your cars for sale and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. I've bought many things through those notice boards. Crazy.
Thai massages, not that I'd know.
We'll edit that out. It's fine.
So I think I got that job from there. And I went around, lovely, beautiful house, beautiful gardens, did the job, knocked on the door, and she was like, she opened the door and went, "Can you go to the back, please?" Closed the door on me. I went round the back. And she's like, "Yeah, just come to the back when you collect your money." I'm really like new to the game when I was experiencing this.
Oh, okay, Mrs. Jones, I'll go.
Yeah, I was. And then I was like, it left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but you know what? I'm going home with some money in my pocket, so cool. And this was really early doors, so literally every pound that I was earning was super important and already spoken for before I'd even earned it.
Been there.
Exactly. And then she was like, "Oh, can you do my mum's?" I thought, great, I'm getting the family. Went around to do the family's house. A couple of occasions happened, actually. So we'll come to this maybe a bit later on, but do you remember I was talking about tiers pricing yesterday?
Yeah.
So I went to give him a quote, the quote, and she was like, "That's too much." She was like, "Can you do it for X?" And I think it's like a $5 difference or something. This is a nice area. This isn't a shitty area. This is a nice money area.
It's not like they can't afford it.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can, but what I won't do is I won't do the conservatory. I'm not on about the roof, I'm on about the paint on the side of the conservatory. So I said, I'll just do the house, but I'm happy to do your price. She was like, okay. And I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 months in, something like that. I was like, do you know what? Even though they've negotiated on the price, they've actually been, up until that point, pretty good, apart from the daughter's a bit of a snob. But up until that point, it was pretty good. It was always on the dot every 4 weeks, no complaints, not, "Oh, it's raining." They weren't a problem in that respect. So out of the kindness of my own heart, I was like, do you know what? Just as a thank you, I'm going to do the conservatory. I got 2 or 3 panes in of this like 12 pane conservatory. And she came banging out the windows like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm doing the conservatory." It's like, "You're not doing that." I was like, "It was a thank you for being a regular customer." Oh. I was like, okay. But I think that's strike 2 on the family, right? Not just this household, the family. Got that one I have to go to train entrance. This one's just fuck knows. And back in the day, some people, depending on who's watching, might remember I had a matte black Golf.
Yes.
As my car,
Yeah,
right? Again, another a really recognizable car. So I'm in this particular village. I'm parked up on this road, kind of like the main connecting road to the high street and to other areas. And she's walking down the road towards me. Don't forget, I'm not at her house. This is the mum. I'm not at her house. I'm out in public. I'm having my lunch. They know I'm coming because I messaged them last night, or I might have called this one. So they know I'm coming. And it's almost like, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. Right past me. And then kept on going, right? I got to the house, cleaned all the windows, knocked on the door. Husband come to the door and goes, yeah, she's gone to central London, so I can't pay you because she's got the money. I went, yeah.
Just seeing her
She
in the village.
literally walked right fucking past me. I said, you lot are something else. I said, I ain't coming back to a lot of you. And that was it. And that was kind of like a line in the sand moment where I was like...
A watershed moment, yeah.
Yeah, I would rather not eat that day than be something so little towards someone or for opinion of someone.
The thing is, like you're saying, like snobbery, it cuts two ways. People, when you say snob, you automatically assume that someone is better than you. Or sorry, you automatically assume that you are better than someone else as the idea of a snob, right?
Yeah.
But there is also,
ironically, I've been called that a few times, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, ironically, there are also working class snobs, if you like, and the idea is, like I was saying before, about people like us don't run businesses, and I say I grew up in Bolton, where at the time that I was growing up, at least, if you built a conservative club in, Bolton, it would have its windows smashed within 5 minutes. You'd be lucky if it was not burnt to the ground, kind of thing. It was was the anti-Tory sort of anti-establishment sort of thing. Northerners were particularly well known for this, and
I'm not surprised.
there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of without getting too political. There's a lot of emotion surrounding that, and that's fair enough. But it goes back to where people I went to school with, when they kind of found out that I was self-employed, they were a bit like, well, you know what, it won't last. It'll fall into one of two categories. You're either, it won't last. At some point, he'll cream in and he'll not. And he'll
get a real job.
He'll get a real job one day. You know what I mean? And then there's the other category where they were like, oh, well, you're going to look at you and be like, it's all right for you. It's all right for you, mate. You're lucky, aren't you? All this sort of stuff. And it's like, I was like, mate, lucky. He's got
no idea.
Got nothing to do with it, mate. It's like, work my ass off. You know what I mean? It's like, the harder I work, the luckier I get, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's nothing to do with it. So the thing is that snobbery cuts both ways. And yes, you've got your people, like your customers, like sort of hold the nose while they talk to you and stuff like that. Oh, you're only the help. You're only the trades entrance, the groundsman, and all this sort of stuff. What have you? But then you've also got the other side as well. And I think where people look at and say, business owners, particularly how they don't understand how things work and all this sort of stuff, and they think that automatically when you run a business that you're different now, you've changed, and it's like there are people that I grew up with who were good friends with won't talk to me now because you're not one of us. You're a business owner now. You're not one of us, and it's like, mate, I've got guys that clean windows for a living. You know what I mean? I'm still the same guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same person. I'm still just as willing to be your mucker as I was before. The difference is I've got more potential, I've got more money, I've got less time and all this, but I'm still the same guy to some extent.
I'm not.
So what I say the same guy I've developed obviously as a person. I'm not the same guy as I was when I was 16. I mean, I think if you are, you're in the wrong. You're making mistakes. But I've developed as a human. But I'm still just as reasonable as I was before. I'm still the same sort of character. I'm still the cheeky chappy at heart. I will still make a joke. I've got a cracking sense of humour. What have you? Cool. You know what I mean? But I've not changed in that respect. I've changed how I live my life. I've changed my value structure. I've changed that. I value my self-worth. You know what I mean? And I encourage others to value their self-worth as well.
Yeah.
And escape that mindset, that trap of sort of saying, oh, well, people like us don't start businesses. And it's like, well, why not? You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't want to start a business, that's cool. For game, I'm not going to say you should start a business. Everyone should start a business. I'm not saying that. Neither am I saying that everyone can start a business. I don't think everybody has the mindset for it, or the patience, or some people are very risk averse. I'm not saying everybody should start a business. What I'm sort of saying is that ultimately
there's another way if one way doesn't work for you.
If everybody should at the very least not rule out the idea of working for yourself just because other people say people like us don't start businesses. And that was very much a case of, that was very heavily ingrained into me, not necessarily by my parents, but I mean, maybe by my parents. My parents were very risk averse, didn't want me to borrow money, and they were worried about debt, and debt's a bad thing. We don't borrow money from there, all this sort of stuff, and very risk averse and all this sort of stuff. And it's funny now, having started my business, my mum working, I mean, I don't pay my mum. She does it for free, and I think a big part, I've offered to pay her, and she doesn't want to. But she keeps her mind occupied doing it, and I think she feels a sense of reward seeing me thrive. And I think that's why she does it. But she looks at how I've started a business now, and it's kind of opened up her eyes a little bit, and gone. She's almost gone. It's not It's not as difficult as what people think it is.
No.
I mean, yeah, sure, you got to take risks and you got to be patient. You got to do what other people are prepared.
But everything's difficult. It's difficult to start your own business, but it's also difficult to go to work on someone else's clock.
Yeah.
That's difficult too.
100%.
It's difficult when you've got to work Friday and you're going to miss your child's sports day because you work for someone else.
People accept that they don't have a choice. People accept that they don't have a choice, which is why it's easy, because if you don't accept you have a choice, you just like, oh, it's what it is, I'll just accept it. Now for me, it's like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not sure about that, mate. I've got stuff to do, and I've made plans, and I want to live my life this way. See, for me, putting myself in other people's hands for a job terrifies me more. We were saying the other night about how, my brother ultimately is never no more than, as well paid as he is never more than upsetting one person away from losing his job.
Yeah.
And the reality
we've
is,
got a buffer.
We've got a buffer. I mean, I could upset. I mean, I'm not saying that I would, because I'm not that character.
No, exactly.
But I mean, ultimately, if I upset half of my customers, if I lost half of my customers, yes, all right, I might have to lay staff off, fine, but I will be able to feed my children.
Yeah.
So that gives me confidence to sort of say, well, I won't lose half my customers, and I want to keep paying staff and all this sort of stuff. But I'm not that one person from losing everything that I was when I lost my job. And
it's the same if you work in a place where they have clients and customers, and they can have crappy clients or customers, and you've got to put up with them
because the boss says you have to
keep your job.
Yeah.
But whereas you and I are like, do you know what? I don't like you.
Our value structures don't meet.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who runs a window cleaning business, he was the same. He works down in Plymouth, and he was saying if he particularly doesn't if he thinks that this customer is going to be particularly different. Everyone's heard of VAT, but there's also DAT, which is dickhead added tax. So ultimately, if the person's going to be difficult or obnoxious or going to be a problem, then you're almost like, right, well, I'm going to put the price up a little bit, because to deal with that person is going to have an impact. And I'll be like, you know what, for me to do that for you. Conversely, the other way as well, if you see an old dear and you get on well and all this sort of stuff, and you're like, you know what, I can knock 3 or 4 quid off that because you're a good person. And I don't really need that 3 or 4 quid. No. I'll knock that 3 or 4 quid off because she's a good person and she speaks to everybody, and she always makes nice butties, and provides me with biscuits and brews when I go around and stuff like that. And she always says hello to my staff, and she's always very polite, and she always goes out of her way to gather more customers for me. Yeah, you know what, I'll sacrifice that 3 or 4 quid for you because I can, and I'm willing to. But on the other side of the coin is, if you upset me,
it goes the other way.
It goes the other way. It's like, well, I'll put an extra couple of quid on there because I have a feeling you're going to be a problem.
Yeah.
You're going to be the guy that rings me on a weekend. You're going to be the guy that rings me or texts me on the morning off and says, actually, don't do it today, Chris, even though my guys have already left and they're on the way to your house.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, you're going to be a drama, aren't you?
Yep.
So my generosity swings 2 ways. It's a double-edged sword, and it swings both ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But mate, it's been an absolute privilege.
Thanks for having me,
mate. Honestly, mate, it's I wish you all the best, mate. You clearly deserve to thrive and succeed. And mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Honestly,
thank you, mate.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Take care.
If you like the content we put out, please like, share, and subscribe as always. And any suggestions for future interviews or podcasts, I'm always welcome for suggestions. Once again, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, buddy.
Keep on keeping on.